Today we're going to be looking at expanding algebraic expressions. You probably remember from our previous lesson we talked about double the sum of a and b. The sum of a and b we wrote like this, and to double it we put brackets around that. If we doubled the sum of a and b, we'd have two lots of that sum. So a plus b plus a plus b. If we add those a's together, which are like terms, we would have 2a. And if we add the b's together, which are like terms, we would have 2b. But we don't want to write it out that long way every time. Remember, this 2 right next to a bracket has an invisible multiplied sign there. And what we could have done instead to get to this final answer would be 2 times a, which would give us this 2a, and then 2 times positive b to give us plus 2b. A much easier way of expanding. So let's have a go with some of these examples. We've got 2 and then in brackets a plus 3, and that means 2 times the stuff in the brackets. So we're going to start off by doing 2 times a, 2a, and then 2 times positive 3 plus 6. And that's all you've got to do to expand brackets. Do we have any like terms here? No, so we just keep going. 3 times x gives us 3x. 3 times negative 2 gives us negative 6. Positive times a negative is a negative. I want you to now have a go at part C. Okay, example D, same deal. Let's change colours. Oh, a nice green. P times P this time is going to give us P squared. Then P times positive N plus, what comes first? LMNOP. N comes first. There we go. Now this next one, we've got negative 2 out the front times x. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Here's the tricky one. We've got negative 2 times this last term, and this is negative 4. Don't forget, it owns the sign in front of it. Negative 2 times negative 4 is going to be positive 8. I'd like you to have a go at example F. I hope you did well. Okay, let's look at some more. This time we have a bracket and we've got something added afterwards. And we need to really think about BIDMAS. BIDMAS tells us that we need to do stuff inside of the brackets first. But when we zoom in on these brackets, there's nothing to do inside of there. So don't need to worry about the B. We also don't have any powers, so don't need to worry about that. Division and multiplication are as important as each other. There's no division, but there is a hidden multiplication. Remember, in between that 5 and that bracket, there's a multiplied sign. So that tells us we're going to multiply out this bracket, and then we're going to add this 6 on. So it's like we've got this problem, and then we're going to add the 6, because that 5 is only attached to the brackets. So 5 times a is 5a, and then we've got 5 times positive 1, so plus 5. Then we just have this 6 that's hanging out at the end, waiting to join in. Now, do you see any like terms? Well, hopefully you do. There's a 5 and a 6 here, positive 5 and positive 6. Put them together, and that's going to be plus 11. So we expand the bracket first, according to BIDMAS, and then we simplify. Same thing here. We've got this question, we've got 4, and then in brackets 2b plus minus 1. We're going to expand that bracket, and then afterwards we're going to add that 7 on, because that's further down our BIDMAS. So 4 times 2b is 8b, 4 times negative 1 is negative 4, and then we're going to add that 7 on that was hanging out. We now have some like terms, minus 4 plus 7, so we're going to get 8b plus 3, because minus 4 degrees getting 7 degrees warmer, we're at 3. I'd like you to have a go at the next example and see how you do with it. Okay, big error alert. You've got to be very careful of example J. You must think of BIDMAS. So let's write it down just to remind ourselves. Nothing to do inside of the bracket, No powers here, and there's no division to do. So we must do this expansion first, because remember, there's a time sign in between that number and the bracket. But what number is it? It's not just 3, it's -3. Remember, the sign belongs to the number it's in front of. So that means that 2, as much as you might be tempted to do 2 minus 3, subtraction and addition are way at the end of our bid mass. So we need to leave that 2 there, and we're going to do this expansion of this bracket, and then that 2 will join back in. Don't do 2 minus 3, that's subtraction. We've got to do our multiplication first. So write the 2 down, and then treat -3 bracket x minus 4 bracket as a separate problem. -3 times x will be -3x. And then -3 times -4, negative times a negative is a positive, 3 times 4 is 12. Now we can do our addition and subtraction. We've got that -3x, so let's maybe put that at the front. And we've got 2 plus 12, because these two are like terms. And that would be plus 14. You could have also done the 2 plus 12 first to be 14 minus 3x. These are the same because the 14 is positive and the minus 3x, well, that's negative in both of these cases because the negative belongs to the thing it's in front of. So these two expressions are equivalent. Equivalent's a nice word because it's trying to tell us what it means. Because the first bit kind of looks like it's starting to say equal. Really good. Okay, let's look at this next example. We've got this bracket. We've got 3 times, in brackets, x plus 2. And then it looks like we've got a wacky bracket here. It's not really multiplied by anything. So let's go ahead and expand that first one. 3 times x gives us 3x. 3 times positive 2 plus 6. Then we've just got plus 3x plus 6. There's nothing going on there, so we can just pop that in without the bracket. What you could also imagine it as, if you prefer, is that there's a little invisible 1 there. So positive 1 times 3x gives us 3x. Positive 1 times 6 gives us plus 6. That's another way that you could also visualize it. Now let's get our like terms together. We've got 3x plus 3x. So we're going to have 6x. And then we have plus 6 plus 6. So we're going to have plus 12 on the end. Okay, very tricky one here, but I know we can manage. We've got 9 minus, and then x minus 3 in brackets, minus 4, and then in brackets 3x minus 2. When we do this, it's like there's an invisible 1 here. We've had a few cases of that. Remember when we were looking at the coefficient of negative x squared y, and we said there was an invisible 1 there, which was a negative 1 with that sign. There's an invisible negative 1 at the front of this bracket. I would even recommend drawing it in lightly, like I've done there, to remind you. Now, are we going to do this 9 minus 1 first, or are we going to use bid mass and do the expansion? We're definitely going to do the expansion. So as tempting as it is, you leave that 9 there, it will join in later on. We're going to do negative 1 times x will be minus x. We don't need to write negative 1x. And then negative 1 times negative 3 will be plus 3. Be careful with those double negatives. Next one, we've got negative 4 times 3x, so minus 12x. We sign number lettered it there. And then negative 4 times negative 2 will be positive 8. Now let's look at our like terms. I notice this is just a number, this is just a number, and this is just a number. 9 plus 3 is 12, plus 8 is 20. And then we've got minus x minus 12x. Well, that's going to give us minus 13x. You could have written that round with the x's bit at the start. So you could have written minus 13x because that negative belongs to that. And then what would go in between the minus 13x and the 20? That would be a plus, because when a number's written out the front by itself, it's a positive. Okay, I'd like you to have a go at m. It's a single bracket expansion. Hopefully that one was nice. Okay, tricky one to finish us off. It's like we've got two separate questions here. This bracket to expand, and then we've also got this bracket to expand. Let's deal with the orange one first. We've got 4 times minus 5. Excuse me, I meant negative 4 times 5. That's going to be negative 20. Then negative 4 times negative x, the sign will be positive. The number's 4, the letter is x. Now, let's deal with the pink one. We've got minus and then in brackets 2x minus 5. That is like there's an invisible 1 in front of that. And remember, multiplying something by negative 1 just changes the sign. So if we did 2x, and this is just some thinking on the side of our page, 2x times minus 1 is just negative 2x. And negative 5 times negative 1 is going to be positive 5. Multiplying by negative 1 just changes the sign. So negative 1 times 2x, like we said, minus 2x. Negative 1 times negative 5 plus 5. Let's now do our like terms. We've got negative 20 plus 5. That's going to be negative 15. And then we've got plus 4x. Subtract that 2x. That will give us plus 2x. And we could have written that around the other way. We could have 2x minus 15.